All right.
Yes, there you are. And it looks really good too. It looks really good. So we are live. Yep.
You could go up a hill and you could see. Be on top of the what you could see. Well, then you get to see these paintings. Like I say, and it tells you where it is, and you can pick out something. I was talking to someone. Where we are now. And we're at the family, work, education, but all of them were in close proximity. And all of their efforts was across the line, right there. But
Oh, they gave away from
You got me on school. You got me on school. We didn't have 85. No. Three. Restaurant. But I mean, I'm gonna do 16 programs. Blue or white, tomorrow. And then my white doctor shop. I'm confused. Y'all were gone 6 hours. You brought I remember where I You get sand up in the creek. He was serious to me. This is the one that walked 3 miles to it. Getting foothold on the level to other places, so the practice. Ring your bell. Ding. Ding. Are we on? Ding. 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 Welcome to Rotary Club of LaGrange, August 17, 2022. Please join me in the pledge, followed by the invocation be given by, you guessed it, Father Tim. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Almighty and everlasting God, we thank you for this wonderful day, the gift of your creation, the gift of service. As we honor you today, and we as a Rotary community come for the service before self. Bless our meetings today and throughout the world as Rotarians. We may be exemplary citizens both of this country and of your kingdom. And through bless the food that we have received in conversations and through your goodness, how these gifts of me make us strong and good witnesses of your gospel. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Scott Land is going to come introduce our visitors and guests.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. Great lunch. No comments yet, but I enjoyed it, so thank you, we have two guests today, so as I call your name, please stand and we'll recognize you as everybody stands. Lou Rackmuth is a guest of Ken Miles, and I understand a potential new member. Jane Cooley, who's a guest of Connor Smith. Welcome. And as a reminder, if you haven't told me whether you're going to be able to attend the United Way kickoff on August 31st at this time, please see me after the meeting and let me know whether you're going to be able to be there or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Birthdays, Chunk Newman, I believe, was the 14th. Club member anniversaries, Charles Ferguson is 12 years tomorrow. James Van Shore is 6 years today. Is that right? 6 years today. Wedding anniversaries, Roy Nichols has a big one coming up on Saturday, 56 years. Please silence your cell phones, and remember we have a board meeting immediately following this. Congratulations to all of y'all for finding the place today. Where are we next week? Where? Back to the club. Good. And again, thank you to Father Tim and Emily Mansour and everybody else here for hosting us today. Thank you for Kimball's. That's Amy. Is that right? Nadia, Kaylee, and Morgan, I believe. So they'll be back. The food is still out, so kind of like our banquet. If you want to go graze during, just do it quietly. Bathrooms, through this door or immediately through that door to the right is the women's sitting room, and then there's another door to the actual restroom right there, and then the men's is on the left. Okay, so next week back at the country club, but then for the next 2 weeks, we will not be at the country club. August 31st, we're with Patty at the United Way kickoff at the Delavant. Actually starts at 11:45, I believe.
That's correct.
That's correct. So be there. And then the next week, we're with Mike Wilson at the new Homeless Coalition Assessment Center at 124 Gordon Commercial, catered again by Kimball, you'll definitely want to be back. And just to follow up with Kay, found on YouTube, there's like a 6-part little mini kind of thing on Horace King. So they have like an hour special, but they've broken it up into 6 little parts, and there's all kinds of other stuff. So check that out. Anybody have, I didn't bring the globe, but you're still welcome to deposit dollar bills on the table. Anyone, going once, going twice, we're gone. Program introduction is me. I don't know why after I botched last week's, but at least this week it's not in 6-point type Cyrillic font on my iPhone, so hopefully I can read it. I think that's all the announcements. Yeah. Our program is today is Holly Winter. She's Executive Director for the American Red Cross. She is passionate about serving communities and individuals in collaborative work, so she's in the right place. Holly believes service is an important component to living a full life and is grateful to be in a role that provides humanitarian services on a large scale. Holly has worked for a variety of public and private organizations, including Georgia's Department of Economic Development, Biblical History Center, and participated in leadership opportunities through Meriwether County, DCA, Young Game Chambers, and is currently participating in Leadership Troop. She is a certified tourism marketing professional and has bachelor's degrees in art history and journalism. In her personal life, she's a supporter of the arts, part of Beacon of Hope, a member of the local Junior Service League, a dog mom, I have one of those too, and is, a mom that has a bunch of dogs, and is on a competitive trivia team. Wow. She is a Fayette County native who has adopted LaGrange as home. So, Holly, come on down.
Hopefully you can hear me. I'm a little shorter than Ken is. So glad to be here. This time I'm on this side of the program, not in the audience. So I'm really excited to talk to you today about preparedness. And I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about today. I just kept coming back to preparedness. We're coming up on hurricane season. It's always home fire season now. It's really important that we're all prepared so that we can keep ourselves and our families safe. So today we're going to be doing Be Red Cross Ready, which is one of our 4 preparedness programs. We also have Prepare with Pedro, which is for early elementary students. We have Pillowcase Project, which is for older elementary students. We have Home Fire Campaign, which is where we install smoke detectors and then help families create escape paths in case their home has a home fire. And then Be Red Cross Ready, which is great for middle schoolers on up to senior adults. So let's get prepared. Odds are that a disaster is going to strike. It's not really an if situation, it's a when situation. And so it's important that we're prepared because these disasters are devastating. When you lose your home or your community is impacted, the whole community really feels it, or your whole family really feels it. They happen at any time, any place. They're never convenient. The tornado we had last year in 2021 hit Newnan in the middle of the night. It wasn't really even on the radar for Coweta County to have really bad weather. It just popped up. We were prepared for North Georgia. So they never happen at a convenient time. So it's important that we are prepared for when they're going to occur. And then these are all the different hazards that we can possibly face. So which ones do you think we are at risk for, not only in Troup County, but also in the state? You can yell out your answers.
Fire.
Tornado.
Yeah. So of all these, we're actually at risk in Georgia for all except tsunamis and volcanoes. We do have fault lines, so we could have an earthquake that actually does some damage. And then back in 2019, there was a landslide in North Georgia. So we're at risk for all of these. It's up to us to be ready. We tend to think, oh, first responders and disaster organizations, and they do come, but sometimes it can take them a little bit to get out to the community, depending on the type of disaster that there's been. Roads could be destroyed, and so that prevents first responders and governmental entities and disaster organizations from getting to the community. Utilities could be down, making the roads unsafe or communication not probable. Hospitals, they're staffed for their day-to-day operations, but if there is a disaster, it might take time to mobilize additional services. So they're coming. So in that meantime, it's really important for us to make sure that we are prepared for our own families and possibly even our neighbors if we need to help them. So you can prepare. Each of us can prepare our households. Is our preparation going to be perfect? No. Is it going to eliminate all of the stress of the disaster happening? No. But it is going to help make us safer, and we are going to be glad that we took that time to prepare for that disaster striking. So what does Be Red Cross Ready look like? You want to get a kit, you want to make a plan, and you want to be informed. So those are the 3 pillars of Be Red Cross Ready. And so getting a kit. We recommend 2 kits, one being a personal bag. You want to at least have 3 days worth of supplies in it, but work up to 2 weeks worth of supplies. You don't know what kind of disaster you could be involved in. These are things like personal items, medication, things that you need personally in order to survive before you can get out, get to the store, or get help from first responders. And then you want a grab and go bag. Not all disasters are the same and need the same response, and there might be a time when you need to escape, like a home fire. And so you want to have a small bag that you can grab and you can go. You might want one per person. You might want one that has everything for your family. That's up to you, but we do recommend 2 different types of bags. And then you want to put your essentials in this bag, things that you use daily, food. But remember, you probably don't have electricity, so it needs to be non-perishable food, not food that you need a microwave for. So your non-perishable foods, medication. If you are without your medication, you want to have, and that's a problem, you want to have that in your bag so that you have that when you escape. And then water. Does anybody know the recommended amount of water that your kit should have?
1 gallon.
1 gallon per person.
Yes. Oh. All right. Y'all are so smart. Y'all are so smart. Yes, and that seems like a lot of water, but the thought process behind that is half for drinking and half for sanitation. So a few water bottles is not really going to be sufficient enough if you're lasting a couple days. And then also things like flashlight, make sure it has batteries. If you have any kind of equipment to charge your cell phone with solar power, things like that. You want to prepare if you have to go off the grid for a couple days while things are getting back up and running in your community. So we've made the kit, now we need to make the plan. Not all hazards are the same. If there's a home fire, you want to get out of the home. You have 2.5 minutes to get out of your home for a home fire. But if there's a tornado, you want to stay in your home and you want to find that dark area that doesn't have windows that is the safest area. So you want to take each plan that you're at risk for and make a plan based on what the safety features of that are. It doesn't really do us any good if we have a plan, but we don't identify action steps and who's in charge of those action steps. Maybe your family has somebody who struggles with mobility. So who's going to be the person in charge of helping that family member? So make sure that what your action steps are, there's somebody who is assigned to each of those. So that when you need to enact this plan, everybody knows what they're supposed to do. And then you want to make sure that you include the right details in the plan. For instance, we recommend that for a home fire escape plan, you want to look at 2 different ways to get out of each room. That way, in case your first method is blocked, you have another way to get out of that room. So practice 2 different ways to get out of every room. You want to practice that. And then you also want to choose your meeting place. Again, you only have 2.5 minutes to escape a home fire. And so you want to have a meeting place outside. It's really important to have a meeting place and make sure your family members know where it is. because it's really tragic to lose a family member from going back into a fire because they were looking for a family member. And so if you have a meeting place, you can really eliminate that risk that your family's at. Families tend to think, oh, the mailbox, that's a great spot. We don't recommend the mailbox because once the first responders come, the mailbox is really going to get congested. So maybe there is a place at your neighbor's home away from the congestion. Maybe there's a tree in the yard that feels like a safe point. So you want to identify that location. You also want to identify a location that's not at your home. There could be a disaster that happens and, somebody's at work, somebody's at home, and you can't get back into your neighborhood. So you need to create a meeting point. And so maybe that's the corner store, maybe that's your church parking lot. So you want to have two different types of meeting places, one outside of your home and then one outside of your neighborhood. You also need to think about communicating. If you are separated, the disaster didn't happen while you were both at home. It's important to kind of figure out how you're going to communicate that. Phone lines could be down depending on the type of disaster. With a tornado, it could take the cell phone towers down. So walk through how you would communicate where you are to your family members. And so we have done the plan, but now we need to be informed. And so how does your community communicate what is going on when there's a disaster? Are there Facebook pages that are really great sources of information? Do you listen to the Weather Channel? How do you find out information so that you know how your community is recovering and where the resources are? When the tornado happened in Newnan, there were great Facebook pages that were resources, and everybody knew to come to the fairgrounds because that's where there was a huge bulk of supplies for families to come and pick up. So how are you going to get to that source of information? Also, things like knowing the difference between a tornado watch and a tornado warning. Those are the kind of things that it's important to be informed on, so you know when you hear, hey, there's a tornado watch, I know that there's a potential for it. Or if there's a warning, I know one's probably been spotted. And so then you can know what game plan you need to enact. We're talking a lot about prepping for a disaster, but it's really important to think about prepping and helping ourselves after disaster happens. I was just talking about this with Mike in the line, but you go through a lot of trauma when a disaster hits, whether you've just lost your home, maybe you've lost a loved one, maybe you've lost a pet in a natural disaster. There's a lot of trauma associated with this experience. And so it's really important to check in with ourselves after we go through this to know how we can not only put our life back together, but then also our mental health. It's really common to go through things like excessive arguing, maybe you're exhausted, you're just very scared. And so checking in with ourselves after disaster is really important so that we're healing holistically. For our clients, we do offer mental health, health services, and then spiritual care. And so that really helps our clients not only move forward with action steps, but then also look at the mental trauma that they have gone through with their disaster. And then tools. There are some really great apps. Of course, I'm partial to the Red Cross app. It is free. You can download it for your iPhone or your Android, and it will let you set up alerts for the 35 different disasters that are probable. So for me personally, I have like thunderstorms, severe weather, and tornadoes set up on mine. Wildfires did not make my cut, but it is a really great app, and it beeps at me whenever there's some weather happening within the radius that I've set up. Okay, so you're all aware of the disasters that are most likely now, and so now your next steps are to work with your family to create your plan and to practice it. And then you want to work on your kit, and then it would be great if somebody in your household was CPR or first aid trained, just in case that day comes when you need to practice those skills. And then here's a little picture of our app. It also has information on there on preparedness tips. It'll alert you if there's a heat advisory in your area and what you need to do to take safety from a heat advisory. So it has all sorts of good stuff on there that you can download and set up your information. And then I'm happy to answer any questions. On your table, I also included our FY22 metrics for service delivery for here for Troup County. You'll see our response with disaster. That's all disaster, not just home fires. So all of that, the families we serve, the biomed impact, and then preparedness programming. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, whether it's about preparedness or anything else Red Cross related. Yes.
You talked about the warning on your cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
Will it track you wherever you are, or just in a set area that you preset?
You can set it up to like use or track while in use kind of thing. So it's not constantly tracking you, but you can turn it on and say, hey, I'm in like Tennessee and I'd like to get updates on the weather in Tennessee. So you can make it move with you. Yes.
CPR training?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do that. 1-800 or redcross.org. That is where you can sign up to get Red Cross training, and we do have some facilitators within this community.
How many of us are trained in CPR? We should hit opportunity for less than half.
Sweet. Yes.
How many do you require to facilitate a class?
I am not sure what the lowest number is, but I can check on that and get back with you. I know we do classes of all sizes. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
and I wondered what the disasters in Georgia or East Alabama, what do the locals respond to? Do you, I mean, is there, stay in Macon or Savannah, do they call you in or does it depend?
So the way it works is that when the fire department responds, they can call in the disaster and say, here's a home fire that you need to respond to, or the family can call our 1-800 number and also call it in. And then our national dispatch will work its way down and find a responder that is available, that is local. And we were there within 2 hours. And so we used to be responding virtually, which actually cut down our response time. But our volunteers really love to literally be the shoulder to cry on. So we're back in person now. And so that's kind of how it trickles down from the 1-800 number to one of our responders arriving on scene to help the family.
So in the last year, you've sent folks beyond Troup County?
Yes, we have. So we have our county, but then we have our chapter, and there are 21 counties within Central Midwest chapter. And then we're part of the region of Georgia. But like right now, I have a volunteer who's out of Macon who just got back from the Kentucky flooding. And then I have a coworker who was deployed to the Ukraine crisis, and she's getting back. So even within our network of chapter and region, we still can deploy anywhere, wherever there's a need and wherever our specialty is. Yes, ma'am.
We are so connected to our cell phones, and I think most of us don't even have landlines. So when you said if the cell tower's down, make sure you have a communication plan, I can't even think what that would be. What is your?
I know, it's that's really difficult. I think that's why it's so important to really think it through ahead of time, so that you know where your meeting point is, and knowing, you know, if you're disconnected from your family, like where do you need to meet up outside so that you can connect, so that you don't have to go so many hours without connectivity before things can boot back up. Yes.
How's the blood supply?
It's always, there's always a need for blood. COVID did hit the blood supply pretty hard, especially when it came to the educational opportunities. Educational opportunities are about 25% of the blood supply pre-COVID. And then of course that was hit. I'm so proud of Troup County Schools because it was one of the few school systems that we were actually able to come back into. So Dr. Shoemate was really wonderful with that, as Think Academy and West Georgia Tech. So it is still, we're still in process of trying to replenish the number of donors that we lost throughout COVID. one thing that we've seen is just getting out of the habit of donating. People that would donate at their corporate blood drive now are working from home, and they haven't transitioned the habit to finding a community blood drive. So there is always still a need for blood. Yes, sir.
As a pastor of this church, I became informed about blood drives both at the Red Cross and Life South, because the Red Cross is not necessarily locally, it goes everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I alternate between Red Cross and Life South, because the Life South blood drive goes directly to our Truth County.
Thank you for that. Yeah, the church here, we have many really wonderful church partners that are very faithful with their blood drives. This church is one of them. Life South is the primary provider for our local hospital, but Red Cross blood does go out. So you donating in Troup County could help your family member in another county. And then we're also the primary provider for the hospitals in Columbus, Noonan, and Atlanta, which we do go to for some of our medical needs. So we're all just trying to collect blood to help people. So thank you so much for that. Yes, sir.
What are your funding sources, and are they currently adequate?
Yeah, so we do a lot of fundraising in order to be able to provide mission delivery for our disaster work, for Biomed, and then our Service of the Armed Forces. And so we have a variety of different streams. United Way is a really wonderful partner. And then we have individual donors, we have corporations, we have foundations. So we do have a lot of different revenue streams that are pouring into the pot so that we can deliver mission delivery.
Holly, with regard to fundraising and Red Cross, do you want to speak to, if a disaster happens, the best way to give funds to benefit Red Cross? Not designating it specifically to that.
Yeah, donating is, we're so appreciative of all the donations that we get. But it is great to donate to disaster so that we can pour into the disaster pot that we are going to be using for that response. And so sometimes when you designate for a certain disaster, that makes it a little bit difficult once we have funded that disaster and then we have other disasters, because there's always a disaster to be funding to. So, we just finished really working on the Kentucky wildfires. The Atlantic's really calm right now, but, give it a week or two and the waters will turn up a hurricane. So the most helpful thing is designating for disaster if you want to work with that, because those funds do go to all of the disasters. But it helps us out without this specific designation for a specific disaster. Yes,
So
sir.
that brings up the question, whenever there's a big disaster, everybody wants to help. So what happens to those excess funds then?
They go to the families. Yeah. It all is used. We're very fiscally responsible organization, and so everything does go to those families. So it is used, if it's tagged, it is going to that disaster to help those families that are needing the financial resources in order to move on to the next phase of their life and get that. So like right now in Kentucky, we've raised money for Kentucky. We are in the process of moving out of the response phase and into the recovery phase. We still have a lot of people in shelters. So we are working to help them identify next steps so we can close our shelters out and then work on the recovery phase, which is helping them rebuild their life and figure out what their next steps are. Yes.
How do all the organizations coordinate? Look, let me give an example. Social Services or Inspiritus, they're in Kentucky right now doing some relief work.
Mm-hmm.
Red Cross is there, FEMA's there. How do you make sure that there's an orchestrated effort and that everybody's helping one another rather than getting in one another's way?
Yeah. The great thing is that everybody has a really wonderful wheelhouse. And so ours is that immediate response. We're providing the shelter. We're doing the damage assessment. But like Southern Baptist is a really great feeding partner, and Salvation Army is a feeding partner. And so feeding is their wheelhouse. Other organizations like Samaritan's Purse, they do a lot of cleanup. And so everybody really has their own wheelhouse, and our leads work together to coordinate. And we have great, really interorganizational partners and relationships so that we make sure we're all doing our own thing to address specific parts of the disaster response process.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure if you've already heard this, I can't hear everything here, but I'm wondering if there's a policy about when and how to discontinue Red Cross involvement after a disaster is done.
Yeah, so that's a great question. We are an immediate response. We're not a long-term response. And so right now we're at about the 2-week mark when it comes to the Kentucky floods. And so at this point, we really work on trying to shut down our shelters and move into that recovery response. So we do not view our shelters as long-term or short-term housing, depending on the definition that you want to use. We're more of the like 24 to 72 hours, and then we are going to help you identify next steps. We work with convening other organizations. You specialize in clothing closets. You specialize in housing, so that we can connect our clients to those resources. Obviously, it's a little bit more difficult when your entire community is flooded. And so sometimes that's why our shelters have to stay open a little bit longer than others. But that's really, we kind of assess the situation and the opportunities for our clients to move out of shelters. Red Cross assistance doesn't stop there, because then they move into the recovery process. But that's when the sheltering process winds down. Yes, sir.
Do you get funds from FEMA, or what is your relationship with FEMA?
We work with FEMA, and so we're a great partner with them, working with the shelter and things like that. I'm not quite positive about the funding. I don't think we get funding from FEMA, but I'm sorry. Yes, they do, and they have their own. They fund different things, so I do not think there's any overlap there. Thank you so much. I appreciate
it. Thank you so much, Holly. Just an aside, a few years ago, I got runner bags from Echo Sigma for my wife and daughters for Christmas. Very popular at Christmas. But the one thing I'm not sure about is the communication. So not to put Karen and Ron on the spot, but there may be a future program in the works to tell us what we could do in that vein, maybe. Holly, thank you. In honor of your speaking today, we'll be making a donation in your honor to Polio Plus, which is Rotary's initiative to eradicate polio worldwide. Next week, we are at the club, right? It's going to be our own Henry Jacobs. The next week, we're at Delamont. And then the following week, September 7th, we're with Mike Wilson. Board meeting right now. Before y'all clean up your places, remember that there's more food, and I can't dong the bell, but if y'all will wave to Barbara and Jake. There we go. All right. She can't hear you, but I don't know. Can you hear us? I think I'll hear back on that one.
But anyway, we are adjourned.
Thank you, Holly.
How are you? Oh.
Like the one, did not think it was that great, but they just thought maybe I practiced. But it's like one weekend that it's away, and of course that's a different absolutely. So I'm like, I'll try to go in the winter so I can see them in the house. Yeah. Now. How are you enjoying your new role?
We're just transitioning for a while.
So that would happen.